Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Small Screen Sagas. I'm your host, Nicole. Today we are going to be talking about from Season 1, Episode 2, entitled The Way Things Are Now. This was a very great episode. It was so sad, though. Watching it again for the fourth time, it was very sad all around. So I'm going to break the episode up this time into some pieces of different characters, and then we'll go from there. And we'll probably be around 15 minutes for this recap. First, I want to talk about Sara. As I mentioned in the last episode, she was kind of creeping me out. She's keeping secrets. She killed that guy for no reason. Now in this episode, we see her start to talk to herself. Clearly, she's not talking to herself. She's talking to someone in her head. And they're giving her instructions on what to do. So she makes a bloody mess out of the guy that she's now killed. And she also admits to her brother, hey, I left the hospital door open. I don't get why, if she was going to leave the hospital door open, if they demanded, the monsters or whoever she's talking to, we don't know for sure if it's the same things that come at night or if it's something different. But if they're telling her, hey, leave the hospital door open, she knows that they're going to kill the nurse as well as Kenny's dad who's inside. Why couldn't she just let Toby live? And why couldn't they just have killed him? Because they made her, mess up the body to make it look like they were the ones that did it. But why wouldn't they just do it? Unless they just want to have even more control over Sara and made her do that kill in addition to leaving the doors open. But she leaves the hospital doors open. It was so sad when that lady, as soon as she sees those two things standing at the door, she freaks out. And obviously her and Kenny's dad do not make it. A few things that Kenny's dad was saying makes me wonder, I kind of listened a little bit more into the things he was saying. He said he didn't trust Toby, but Toby didn't do anything. But maybe if Toby wasn't there, maybe they wouldn't have done what they did. I'm not sure. So I don't know. But the dad also obviously had dementia, and this is where he ended up. Kenny tells that story a little bit later on how they ended up there. It was just a sad way of how things ended there. And we'll see now that Sara has told her brother at least some of the information. I don't believe she told him she killed Toby, but she did tell him about the door. We'll see what he does with that information now that he knows that she did that. Because it's pretty much murder. If you leave the door open, you're pretty much trying to murder that person. All right, so Kenny was sort of in several different mixes. He's sort of part of the Sara storyline because that's his dad that's involved, and we see him playing chess with his dad. Yet at the same time, he's really connected with Christy, so he's worried about her being in the RV overnight. And it made me really sad when he was talking to Father Godfrey, the priest, and he was saying he's drunk now, and he's like, yo, when you guys go pick him up in the morning to the RV, I can't go. He's like, after everything that just happened with Megan and Lauren, the little girl and her mom from the first episode, I can't see any more deaths. I'm at my limit. I'm going to break down. So he's telling Father Godfrey, I can't. I'm almost broken at this point. And not a spoiler, but you'll see several of the characters throughout the season start to feel this way. I mean, clearly Sara is broken right now. She's giving in and listening to these things in her head. And Kenny's pretty much saying, I'm broken. I'm not going to be able to make it if I see another body. So it made it even sadder because he was so focused on the RV, thinking those people weren't going to make it overnight. Because later on, Boyd does say this is the first time we put these talisman, which are the stone things, in a car and seeing if that would protect us versus in a house. So he's not even thinking that his dad is in danger. It's more of, hey, I can't find these dead people in the morning, not his dad. And unfortunately, out of all that, it's his dad and the nurse who did die. I thought that was really sad, especially seeing how the episode started with bloody Kenny just cutting down that tree. And if you know Kenny, and you'll get to know him even more, he's such a nice, positive character. So see him sort of broken and so sad, it was tough. Now, speaking with Kenny, he was sort of part of that group. Not sort of. He was part of the group of Ellis and Tabitha and Julie and all of them trying to get back to the colony house. They do eventually make it inside, but it was pretty scary. You're on the edge of your seat seeing if the colony house is going to let them in. Because we know from when they were outside the RV, we can hear them, and they're the people or the things, those monsters, they can sound like regular people. They can sound like they have empathy, and they're like, hey, let us in. Are you guys okay? So when Kenny said those words last week, or the first episode, no matter what you see, no matter what you hear, do not stop running, we knew it was serious. By the time they get to the colony house and they're banging on the door and they're inside debating if we're going to let them in, this is probably a trap, and I get that. Like, I think we might have, the guy with the gun, I know they tried to make him seem like he was being an asshole for not letting him, but I get that. If these people can manipulate, and I don't know if they can look like other people, that's the only thing that says, okay, we haven't seen them ever look like someone else that's there. Like, someone can't pop up and act like they're Sara and it's really a monster. So until we see that, I sort of get why he was hesitant to let the door open. Like, hey, these are our rules. We don't open it no matter what. But in the end, I'm glad they did. And they immediately tie up Tabitha and Julie. And they sort of explain that later. Like, we don't know how people react that first night. What if Tabitha, as soon as they let her go, she tried to run off and find Julie. She might run off and open the door thinking, I got to get out of here. And then the whole house is, killed. So I get their protocol that Donna says, hey, this is what we have in place. And I'm glad that she was able to get that door open. Although it's clear Kenny and Father Godfrey, who live in town typically and not in the colony house, they don't agree with that method. But I do. There's just too many people in that house to be taking chances like that. All right, so let's discuss Boyd, Jim, and Christy, and Ethan. They're all in the RV. As I mentioned, you hear those things outside. They first sound nice and innocent. And Jim's like, let's him in. Like, I'll let him in. And Boyd has to physically stop Jim from opening up. He's like, no. And then over time, which I don't get why Jim did it. Like, they're telling you no. Just listen to him. No. He's like, they came back first. No. We already said we have to get inside the house before dark. Why would they come back and when it's still dark? But once again, who would ever think monsters? So I get that. In the end, we do see Ethan has a seizure, and I want to bring that up because it does come up later, and I think it may be important just to kind of keep that in mind, because I didn't really pay attention to it the first 3 times. I'm just thinking, okay, he had a seizure because the thing's in his leg, but I feel like that might have some significance later on, so just remember that part. Also significant in the scene is how Christy almost sort of broke down. She was getting scared, thinking, are we going to make it? Can we really stay out here overnight? And Boyd, being the sheriff, being sort of the guy in charge, he calms her down and says, yo, focus on Ethan. We will make it through the night. We just have to focus on Ethan and don't worry about anything else. Because at this point, those things were like on the roof and everything like that. And even Christy's little dream for a second, her nightmare of Jim picking up the talisman and saying, what is this for? And that shocked me the first time. So Boyd did a really good job. Like, you kind of think, why is he even there? He's not doing much, but he is there, because if he was not there, Christy wouldn't have been able to stop Jim probably from opening the door. They would have died. They would have never stayed there with just the 3 of them. But Boyd was definitely necessary in being there and keeping everyone's head cool and calm. All right, let's talk about Julie, Fatima, and Ellis. Fatima introduces herself to Julie. She tells her, hey, I'm going to be your proxer. The reason why we tied you up is to keep everyone safe. As I mentioned, we don't know how people are going to react. We don't know if you're going to run out the door and leave it open, or run out the door and then they get in at the same time. So she's very nice. I love Fatima's energy. It's very sweet. It's very positive. She takes Julie up immediately to her room, makes her feel at home, tries to make her comfortable. You see all these drawings that Ellis did, which I don't know if has any significance, but I think it does, only because we see Victor later on drawing, and all those drawings with Victor has. Now, Ellis's drawings are just drawings of Fatima, and Victor is drawings in like color, crayon, and stuff like that, and you'll learn a little bit more about those drawings, and I'll talk about Victor in a little bit. So, but she takes her up there to the room, and they're at the top of the window, and she explains, like, we keep the windows covered because those things sometimes can convince people to let them in, which is significant. I won't go further than that. It's significant for later in the season. So good. Just thinking about it. So good. So she tells her, though, I brought you up here because if you climb high enough, then even a nightmare can seem like a dream. And I sort of thought that was sweet. And I like Fatima. I mentioned last episode that Tabitha tries to turn a negative into a positive, but Fatima definitely wins that here because she, as you'll get to know her more throughout the season, she's just a very positive person. I really enjoyed Ellis as well. He seems like he's taking Julie in. He understands what she's going through, understands that she's having a hard time, and he's bringing her into the fold, just like with Fatima. So we'll see what's going on there. So far, it does seem like they made Julie feel more safe. Let's now discuss Donna and Tabitha's conversation to see if they made Tabitha feel just as safe. So they split Julie and Tabitha up. I honestly feel that Julie was old enough just to go ahead and have that conversation with her and her mom at the same time because, one, she's going to find out like within hours, and two, it would have made Tabitha focus more rather than being worried about her daughter. Like, where's my daughter? I want to be with my daughter. Just keep them together. Julie's going to have to hear this story. She's 16, 17, somewhere around there. It's definitely time to grow up. Even Ethan. There's like no children here. Everyone has to grow up very fast, very quickly right now. So only thing I would have changed is like they should have just had both of them together. But Donna tells her, I'm about to tell you, you're about to have the worst conversation of your life. And the first thing she asks her is, do you believe in monsters? And as we just mentioned in the first episode, Tabitha told Ethan monsters aren't real. So we already know the answer to that question. However, one of the things that Donna tells her is the story of how when she got there. She says, hey, I've been here for 3 years, 6 months, 17 days. We came upon this town. We saw the tree. And she goes, yep, everyone sees the tree. And I told you that tree will keep coming up. So everyone sees the tree on the road. I do wonder, though, because everyone sees the tree and then backs up and tries to find a different way. I do wonder what would happen if people just got out of their cars and walked over the tree, and didn't go back and try to find a different way. Unless that's what those crows are there for. If they tried to climb over the tree and keep walking, would the crows attack them? Or, is that what they're there for? Because that's sort of when the Matthews family, Jim and their family, got back in the RV once the crows were out. It was like, okay, let's just get back in the car into safety. But I am curious, like, what would happen if they just continue on going home, really home. But Donna tells Tabitha, hey, we were driving, we ran out of beer, we were looking for a place to stay. We didn't even stop in town the first time we drove through. We just drove through. Then the second time, one of those things, we're standing in front of the car. Her sister gets out with her shotgun. That thing takes the sister's face clear off and tortures her all night. Donna listens to it as she runs and hides when she sees another one approaching the car. She runs and she goes and hides and listens to her sister get tortured the whole night. So that was her first night living in that town. I mentioned on the last episode that when Kenny said, no matter what you see, no matter what you hear, run, that hearing those words were so scary. But I think the scary part of this episode was hearing Donna's story. She seemed so tough. The way she described her sister seemed like she was even tougher. And to hear how their life went from normal to a nightmare within a matter of minutes is frightening. So I thought that was like the frightening part of the episode. And of course, Tabitha really doesn't believe her at first. She's like, this is insane. This is impossible. What are you talking about? So we'll see how she comes to terms eventually with knowing what her situation is now. Now, another character we met, I don't think we saw him in the first episode, or if we did, we didn't talk to him much, and that's Victor. So Victor comes into the scene. It's early on when Julie was still tied up. He comes to get some can of peaches, and he offers her some and says, normally I have to share it. I don't want to. I'm just going to bring it to my room. But Julie's like, you're freaking me out. He's about 50, probably in his 50s. He's carrying around a lunchbox. He does seem socially awkward, so I get her sort of being scared by him. But a few things of note with Victor is Victor has all those drawings on the room. And they do look like they're based on events that happened, because the current drawing that he's drawing right now is a picture of the crash, of the RV and the other car crashing, Toby and Jade's car crashing. Victor wasn't on that scene. Does he have what's going on? Something's going on with Victor. He has some special power, some knowledge, something. I don't quite know what it is, but he obviously has been there for a long time. He even tells Julie that. He's like, you came in 2 cars. That's really special. That hasn't happened in a long time, which tells us he's been there for a long time. And based on his age, and I don't know, he has a lunch pail. We'll find out more. I don't want to spoil too much. But I want to know if people talk to Victor, or how much they talk to him, or how much does he tell them? Because he does ask Julie. He goes, hey, what do you think that means? But Julie's not trying to have a conversation with Victor as far as what do you think it means that 2 cars came at once. And I think we're going to see that often throughout this series with people sort of ignoring Victor as well as Ethan. You know, Ethan mentions the Lake of Tears. I don't really know what he means by that. He even mentions like the spider. They were screaming, but they stopped because the spider came crawling down the wall. I don't know. So, and he mentions that he sees all these drawings on the wall. So it's like, does he see Victor's room? Like, does some special powers now been pushed to Ethan? Not to mention at the end, Ethan sees a little boy. He doesn't tell Julie about it. Sees a little boy in all white. And that little boy, you know, puts his finger to his lips and says, shh, like, so he doesn't even tell Julie what he sees. So I'm curious on what's going to happen with that. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. I thought this episode was good. It was sad. It was sad. It was just sad. The Kenny's dad and seeing Kenny broken like that. And he even mentioning to Father Khatri, like, they don't have to run. Because they know we don't have only so many places to go. So that's why they walk. They never run after us, which is even scarier. If you think about like Michael Myers, he never runs. He always walks and somehow still gets his victims. So yeah, good episode. I will keep chugging along and watching the show so I can pump out some more recaps, and hopefully you guys are enjoying it. These are nice and quick, and then we'll take our time in season 2. But once again, if you want to be part of the podcast, hit me up, host@theverdictsin.com. That's HOST @theverdictsin.com. Be sure to also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/verdictsin, or Twitter @theverdictsin on Twitter as well. All right, thank you so much. Talk to you later. Bye.